Congratulations, you're done with university and you've got the most expensive piece of paper you've ever had in your entire life. The $500,000 question that you all are waiting to have answered: how do I get a job? And the answer is a little bit more complicated than I think all of us would like it to be. Here's a few different things that you can do that'll help you in the long run. 1, going on LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor, Course, all of those places to submit applications to firms isn't the most effective way to try and get a job. What you need to do is master the art of turning a no into a yes. How does that happen? Making connections with people. Making connections with people is going to be the key to you guys breaking into the design industry, finding success, building relationships, and getting that first job. It is more important than your portfolio. Now, Russ, your portfolio is super important. If you are lost in the crowd, there's absolutely no way that you're ever going to get a job unless you somehow find a way to break out and be noticeable and memorable. How do you do that? It's by connecting with people. Spamming the crap out of job boards and applying for everything is not the solution. Focus on one position that you're going for. If you want to work in toy industry, like making housewares or medical, then focus on that. Pick that as your priority and stick with it. If a company has multiple positions available and you kind of could do all of them, don't just apply for all of them. You'll quickly get a reputation amongst recruiters and people in the HR department as, oh, that guy who just really wants to work here and will apply for anything and everything on here. Don't do it. Figure out who already works there and do a little recon. If they've got a portfolio online, look at it. That's likely the one that they had when they got the job. So look at the difference of what they're producing and where you're at, and that'll give you a very clear picture on what that company values when they're looking at portfolios. Is it storytelling? Is it having really hot sketches? Is it really good rendering and keyshot? You're gonna find out by looking at them. Don't focus on the number of applications that you've made per day. Focus instead on the number of conversations and connections you've made in a day. So shoot for like 10 to 15 conversations. You have to try and be a little bit more creative than shooting somebody a LinkedIn message saying, "Hey Bob, I was wondering if I could pick your brain and get you a coffee at the Starbucks." I know it might be hard to be innovative and think of other creative ways to start conversations with people, but if you put a little bit of time into it and realize, hey, they used to work for Nike, I want to work for Nike someday, and now they're working at this other place. And you find some common ground, something that you can see in their job history that sparks a question in your mind, use that to lead. Try not to go too crazy, guys. Too crazy in the sense of like, is sending a printed hardbound portfolio to the studio always going to work? Maybe. It's a gamble. I've heard of students who have done that, printed their portfolio, sent it in, and sometimes studios really appreciate that. And it's definitely an investment on your part. It's going to cost, I don't know, at least $20-$30 to print it, bind it, have it shipped there. And they may just use it as a, decoration on their desk for a while, or they might just pitch it. I would first off, try and at least make some connections with people that are already at that company. And if they say, if you find a junior designer there, you say, hey, just between the two of us, I'd like to be able to work there someday. And I'm considering printing off a hard copy of my portfolio and sending it in. Do you think that that would go over well with management? And they'll likely tell you. If there's one thing that you take away from my advice is, focus on connecting with people and building relationships. When you do that, and you are able to get even better at communicating what you bring to the table, what your talents are, and how you can be helpful to the company and bring value to them, because ultimately it's a business. They have to make more money by bringing you on down the line. So the better you get at that, the more you communicate with people, the more friends that you make, the easier it will be for you to eventually have what was a no turn into a yes, because as soon as that position opens up, they think about you. I know it's going to be hard. You guys all just graduated. There's so much ahead of you. I want you to keep that optimism, because you love design just like the rest of us, and it's easy for that flame to flicker out with the challenges that are ahead. And I don't mean to paint a grim picture for you. That's just how it is. Welcome to the workforce. It's going to be challenging, but you know what? You guys are smart. You're innovators. You're thinkers, and you can make this happen. So there you guys have it. Food for thought. We're about to go to our first commercial break, but before we do that, I want you all to break out your cell phones and get ready to text in 612-405-0726 because there's some questions you're going to see. And if you can text in, we're going to pick a couple of you guys who answer correctly and send you a free giveaway from our sponsors. So stick around. We'll see you right after this commercial break. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. We'll be sure to announce the winners of our giveaways later in the program. But for right now, without further ado, we're excited to announce our first participant on the Student Spotlight program, John Smalls. John is a multidisciplinary artist and designer, well known for creating graphics for consumer products and major retail and sports brands. Though he is originally a native of Philadelphia, several moves granted John the opportunity to call multiple states his home. After traveling the globe, cultivating a worldly and emotive style as a result, John has returned to the East Coast to New York City. For over 15 years, he has worked in the area of graphic design, serving as an art director, product designer, and illustrator. In recent years, John has used his extensive experience, such as knowledge of workshop equipment, 3D printers, band and table saws, painting booths, and hand tools, to transition into industrial design and manufacturing. Although successful in his graphic design career, John has realized that the aspects of his past work that he finds most rewarding are also translatable into key industrial design related functions. John has done a great job and we're excited to feature him on the show. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Russ. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem, man. You've earned it. We're excited to hear from you. So, I mean, this is not so much about me, and really it's a lot more about you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get your PDF queued up, and I'm going to give you a little bit of an opportunity here. Tell us about the program, where you've been attending school, give a shout out to your professors, and give us a little context of the project that you've worked on, and tell us about it. So go ahead, take it away, bud, while I get this queued up for you.
Sure thing. I'm studying, well, I recently graduated from industrial design at LaGuardia Community College in Queens, Long Island City, New York. This fall, I'll be attending City Tech and going for my bachelor's degree in architecture technology. The professor that put me on to this program, who suggested I would submit my work, was in a way, kind of a mentor, was Joe Puma, a manufacturing and processing instructor and my model making instructor as well. And yeah, it's, I don't know what to say. I'm kind of excited. Sorry if I'm getting tongue tied.
Oh, you're absolutely fine, dude.
The product that we'll be talking about today is a bench. The design brief was pretty open. And I say that because this happened to be a class that was taught during COVID. So
okay,
it was kind of restrictive, but at the same time, we had the ability to really push ourselves because we didn't have the use of the studio So it was really up to each individual person to take it to the levels they wanted to take it to.
Sure. All right.
I mean,
Awesome. Well, that's good. No, without further ado, I'm gonna get you all squared away here. Um, you all good? Can you see it right there? Here, here's your bench. All right. Why don't you tell us? I don't know. For some reason, it's wanting to go automatically to the next screen, which is funny. We'll see if it keeps on going correctly. All right. Well, here you are, HILFE bench. Tell us a little bit about the deliverable and what the project was.
all right. Well, have you ever noticed how a pregnant woman has, or a pregnant person has trouble bending over or putting on shoes or just sitting down, or maybe you've seen old people bend over or have the same type of difficulties. That was the idea behind this bench. When I was tasked with designing this bench for class, I didn't want to just make something that was useful for one type of person or make something that was decorative. At the time, I also was dealing with somebody who was pregnant, so that inspired me to take on this challenge of a bench, because I saw how there was nothing available for someone in her condition.
Gotcha.
So kind of like, I would say the idea is just, I wanted to offer a product that was a little bit more stylish, provide a little bit more comfort. And it was able to comply with people or work with people who had like a little bit of a hard time just sitting down. If you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah, man.
All right. So it was designed as a chic bench that doubles in function. On the market, there's a lot of accessible furniture, but by no standards, accessible furniture would be considered stylish. Most of it is kind of bland or I guess medical or hospital-like. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to offer something that was for people with challenges, but at the same time, I didn't want to sacrifice style. Why can't we have both? Why can't there be both? There's no reason why someone who needs like assistance furniture has to sacrifice comfort or aesthetics. So that was the idea behind making this bench. I just wanted to change that. I wanted to give those who are challenged the simplicity and discreet of a supportive bench and footrest. You want to go to the next slide?
Yeah, man.
Sure. Okay. So here's some ideations. It's kind of just brainstorming the idea of the bench. I know these are a little bit more refined, but I wanted to show in this section, I wanted to show a more polished idea that I had brewing before I took it further. Designing a bench, especially designing a bench with multi-functions, isn't necessarily an easy thing to do. And I didn't want it something that was easy to do. I wanted to challenge, but I also wanted to show the challenge of, yes, it's a bench. Yes, it has a footrest, but how can a person sit on this? How can a person use this? And I think that was one of the things that pushed me even more to continue to refine this project. So, for example, let me explain the name HILFE. For example, it's a German name. It means to help or assistance. And I felt like rather than just call it a bench or entryway bench, jazz it up a little bit. So I call it the HILFE. It's called the HILFE bench. If you look at the diagram, it shows, for example, shows a pregnant woman sitting on a bench. A lot of times people who are in that situation, they can't reach their toes. So if you look at the top left, it shows how the bench can slide out. Yes. Originally, the idea was to have 2 drawers, but then I later refined it to have 1 drawer.
Okay.
Next slide, please.
Yeah, man.
Also, let me point out that it was 3 key features that I wanted to keep in mind when designing this bench. I wanted to make it furniture for the home. I wanted to be applied to differently abled people. And I also wanted to make sure that anyone can use it at any age group, from children to adults. Those are like 3 main key features I didn't want to stray too far from in a design aesthetic.
Sure. We good on this slide, or do you want me to go on the next one?
We're fine. I'm sorry.
You're fine. No sweat, dude.
So now that I explained the kind of brainstorm around the HILFE bench, let me break down the aesthetics. So what you're looking at is the overall dimensions of the bench that I took from concept and pushed further into a 3D model and rendering. On the top, you have a nice leather cushion that would provide, comfort and a little bit of class to the overall design. On the sides of the bench, you have two built-in support handles, very discreet, but if someone needs a little ledge to hold on to, they're there. The footrest itself is made of a non-slip ABS plastic, which is tough, durable, and scratch resistant. So it's going to last over many, many uses. Ideally, I would like to create this bench as a full-scale product sample just to see maybe I could tweak it a little bit further and see how I can finesse it a little bit further before I had an opportunity to take it to market.
Sure.
The bench, I would love for this bench to be created out of wood, preferably oak or white oak with a stained finish.
Yeah.
Next.
Cool.
Slide.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now that I've explained the function of the bench, I guess let me put into words how you can use it exactly. So say you come home and you want to sit down, or you had a long day, you just want to rest, want to prop your feet up real quick. As an entryway bench would be the first thing you see. So function of bench is very simple. You simply tap it with your foot. It has a spring mechanism or drawer slide that will slowly open. And as it opens, you can adjust it to the position that you want, depending on the size of your foot, your leg, comfort level. And simply sit on top of the bench and prop your feet up. Now, to close the bench, all you have to do, once again, is just tap it with your foot. And it slides right into place, and it will lock into place.
Gotcha.
Next. Okay. So in conclusion, this product was created for anyone who has a strenuous time bending over, any other type of people with physical difficulties or challenges, and they just wanted to have something that was contemporary, well-to-do, and a stylish entryway bench for their home.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, no problem, man. Good job. Very cool. Well, all right. First off, so I want to unmute, make sure that everybody who's in the meeting has accessibility. We have a number of mentors who are joining us today to participate, and we appreciate all of you for coming and dedicating time out of your busy schedules. You guys should be allowed to unmute. Should you guys have allow person to? Okay, you guys are now allowed to unmute if you guys have some comments or questions that you'd like to address. But me, just to kind of get the ball rolling, I wanted to ask you, John, where do you see this product in the workspace? Like, where could you envision these? Are you thinking that's going to be a piece of furniture in residential homes? Is this like in public places, in, the lobby of a bank or someplace like that? Explain that to me a little bit more, what your thought was behind it.
Sure. I mean, ideally, I would like it for the home, but the way I design it could be for an office. Okay. It could be, because that's the whole idea behind, I don't want to use the word too often, but chic, having something that looks good, but it's fully functional. It can go anywhere. It doesn't have to necessarily be in a house. It could be in your office. It could be in a workspace. It could be, I won't put it in a wood shop, for example, because if, you want something upscale, you don't want it to get it damaged, but it can go to many places. Many retailers could use this.
Sure. Definitely. Okay. Well, I know that there's a few people who are wanting to chime in. Let's, was it Bruce? Did you have a comment that you wanted to make? I saw that you were going off the mute.
Oh, yes. I always have comments to make.
Good. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
John, very nice work. I compliment you. Very clear. I know exactly what you were talking about. Whether I agree with you or not is another thing. But I like the idea of the footrest being part of the stool or bench. Um, I think this could be used in lots of places, not just at home. At work, definitely, because a lot of women now work up to like 2 days before they give birth. Only in America, though, most other countries allow them to go home like 3 weeks before and prepare for the birth. But we only allow the CEOs to do that. Don't get me started. So, John, I have a couple of places for you to go and look at furniture that is possibly for both home and for hospitals and for work. There's a wonderful company called IOA, which is called Images of America. You can go to IOA Healthcare. They started years ago making a product for ambulatory patients, which is where hospitals make all their money. Hospitals do not want you to stay in the hospital anymore. They want you to go home because they can't make any money. They can't charge enough to, and everybody knows that's ridiculous. So they started making Barca loungers basically for dialysis and other things like cancer care. So you really could go look at them, what they do, because they do also do, stuff for in-home. A lot of companies such as Knoll and Steelcase and Hayworth and all of those people, and Herman Miller, I have to mention Herman Miller, make things for hospitals and homes and every place. They have businesses doing everything. I would also look at them. I think it's a unique product and you should really pursue it because you have a very interesting audience. And the other thing that's very interesting about that audience is that they spend freely. Pregnant women love to buy things to make themselves comfortable. So start thinking about that. Maybe you just have to start your own business doing this, but people buy rocking chairs because, they're pregnant and you're going to rock the baby to sleep, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a lot of really terrible things out there, but you should also look at those manufacturers as someone to partner with or to look for work at. So I think it's a very interesting area. Who was the pregnant person that you knew?
A fiance.
Oh, so it's your fault. You realize it's fault, John. You know that, right? Have you figured that out? It's your fault.
I've been specifically asked real quick to have you introduce yourself, Bruce, because a number of people in the chat are like, oh, he's got some great furniture stories. Have him say who he is, what his background is. So briefly tell us a little bit about yourself so that folks know where you're coming from.
When I was very young, I was very lucky to begin to work for a company called Knoll. At the time, they were a $28 million company. It had a factory in Pennsylvania. They just consummated a merger with Herman Miller that said they were worth $1.5 billion. And I wondered where my money is, for God's sakes. Jesus. Do you owe me any? I'm going to go find out that. Yeah, but I also I have some sayings. I have some sayings. Here's some buttons here, right here. I have buttons. If you're interested, one of my favorite sayings is "mock it up before you fuck it up," John. So that's one of my watchwords. The other thing is that I know for sure that form follows coffee. I know that.
There you go.
I'm not sure that it follows anything else, by the way. I think there's a lot of pretense around function, et cetera, but it definitely follows coffee, tea, beer, wine, whatever you need to get yourself started. Cigarettes, I don't care, So, but I designed it all, and then I traveled all over Asia in the 70s and 80s, designing all the products that people thought were designed in Asia. We were
Gotcha.
designing stuff for all the, Toyota and all those things. We were there designing things
Okay.
for them and Takara Belmont. And should I stop?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Bruce, I appreciate it. You've got so much insight, and we appreciate you being on here. Unfortunately, there's a couple other mentors who are ready to weigh in, and we've got limited time. I think I'm gonna have to just follow up with you and have you on the show again, so you can share some more of your stories another time. Does that sound like a deal, Bruce?
Yeah. Are you providing coffee for that? No.
If you can make it to the Twin Cities out here, definitely come on out.
I've been
All
there
right,
many times.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Well,
good.
Bill
We'll be happy to
Stumpf
have
was
you.
a great friend of mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to pass the mic on over to Bill Hartzig, who has unmuted himself. Bill, why don't you weigh in and give some of your thoughts on this project real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks, John. It was a good presentation. I think it was really well put together, and you spoke to it very clearly. I don't think there's any real ambiguity here. So I guess just in way of introduction, quickly, my name is Bill Hartzig. I'm a principal industrial designer at a design firm in St. Paul called Pea Soup. I'm 23 years in the game, about the last 12, I think, of which have been focused mostly on healthcare, which so much of us in the Twin Cities find ourselves doing. And I want to commend you again on picking, finding a user need based on your own personal experience, which, so much of us, we have our eyes tuned into what's going on around us in the world. So we're always complaining about things not being good enough, and we're in a position to be able to fix some of those things. So as far as your product goes here, I think you've got a good bead on something, and that is, I think the phrase I've heard before is dignity in design is aimed at geriatric older populations or differently abled people with dexterity issues, a whole host of things. It's when you design to the tails of the curve, as you will, outside the bell curve, and you're dealing with maybe the smaller populations of people that need more assistance or more consideration. And that's squarely where this product is aimed. The nice thing about it, of course, is that if you do that well, you're going to be designing well for everybody in the middle. And so I think, offering some consideration to somebody that needs help sitting and lifting their feet it's a good product. As far as home use goes, I think, having something discreet, modern, stylish is easy to do. And I think you've accomplished that here, but I would take it a step further if you were going to put it in a public space, because you've got the bench that pops out. Somebody that has it in their home, they're going to know what they have in their home. They're going to know how to use it. If they're just going to encounter this in the wild, they may not know that bench is there to assist them, that little footstool. And so some sort of instruction that's intuitive, easy to understand, and kind of, sends the message home really quickly and clearly. Also, the other thing is durability. If you're going to be putting this in a public space, which I know your intention is home use first and foremost, but if you did want to expand that out and consider it for other spaces, maybe a couple of varieties of material constructions would be worth a look. Again, something like a park bench would be different than a bench you might find at home, and just as an example. But even for home use, you've spec'd out an oak finish. People decorate their homes a little differently, so it may be nice to offer a couple different finishes as well. Okay. So those are basically my main points, my main takeaways from your presentation. Again, like I said, I just wanted one more time to say the dignity in design movement is really taking off in the last few years, and you're seeing things a little more stylish, things like walkers or crutches or ambulatory assistance products, at-home diagnostics where people are finding themselves needing to travel or be out in public with them. Even prosthetics are becoming quite stylish these days, and so I think generally that area of design is pretty ripe.
Oh, that's great. Well, yeah, I appreciate that. John, did you have anything else you wanted to say to Bill as far as
No, I think he's just spot on when it came to safety. Like as soon as he said it, I was like, "You're absolutely right." It's like I have to make it effortless. It's like if I can't just put it out in the public and someone not hit it and cause an accident. But I like the idea of redesigning the bench for something in a park with different materials, obviously, but that could work.
Be a park or an office, or I mean, just anywhere outside the home. I think it just takes on some different aspects.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you to everybody. We appreciate your feedback. Certainly some things to consider. I mean, my major takeaways that I've heard from folks as they've kind of weighed in, John, awesome idea, being considerate, dignity and age and so forth. That's kind of a trending thing that's going on, which is awesome. Just the overall design, I think, is pretty good. There's some things to consider when we talked about the places that you're going to put it, the material choices, giving it some options for decor within the home. Lots of different things that you can take away. I encourage you to certainly follow up, and anybody who's tuning in, if you have questions, to follow up with these mentors who are joining in. They bring a wealth of knowledge and experience, and we greatly appreciate them. Well, I wish that we could spend all day discussing things, but we do have one more student to spotlight here on the show. So guys, stick around after this commercial break, and we're going to hear from our next student. All right, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. It is now my pleasure to introduce our second Student Spotlight participant, Erik Jamison-Ekeling. Erik's passion for helping people and humanitarian design led him to begin his college career as an architectural student at the University of Minnesota. But during his sophomore year, Erik switched to product design and truly found his passion. He's designed everything from a blind accessible coffee maker to a gas mask. In the wake of the George Floyd murder, he started thinking of ways that he could further the Black Lives Matter / social justice movement, especially in his hometown of Circle Pines, Minnesota. Erik wanted to tie his love for hockey, an incredibly discriminating and privileged sport, to his efforts as well. He set up a donation initiative and fundraising effort to help foster inclusivity, access, and opportunities for BIPOC families who have been and continue to be discriminated in society and sport. His team currently is registered as a 501c3 nonprofit organization to help bolster their efforts and enforce their credibility and legitimacy within the community. Erik, wow, that's crazy impressive, and wow, congratulations, and thank you for joining us on The Variable. We're glad to have you with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Russ. Glad to be here.
Not a problem. Yeah, we're excited. So, just like we did with John, I want to give you an opportunity to start things off for your segment here. I'm going to get it queued up. Tell us about your university, a little bit about your program, some of the mentors that you had to get you where you're at right now. Well, especially tell us what year you are in school and what the prompt was for this particular project.
Yeah, so I go to the University of Minnesota, which is in Minneapolis, and I'm a product design student there. And our program itself had our first graduating class in 2018, so it's relatively new among the industry. So it's kind of fun to be part of the guinea pig, like pet project that's going on to see where it goes and how it changes over time.
Right.
Yeah, but this assignment, the design brief was simply wearable technology, and it was a month long. It was the last project I had, And the professor is Ben Pratt, a really, really great guy who gives his students a lot of kind of wiggle room and lets them take their kind of designs any way they want, as long as it's really solving a problem. And I didn't want to do another like wearable wristband or a watch or a medical device, because I think that's been done way too much in terms of schooling and projects. So I knew, as part of the Democrat, as part of DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, I've kind of seen a few areas in life that could possibly be improved through design, and I thought that wearing a gas mask might be a fun thing to take on, especially because I learned Alias software last spring. So I could get those kind of surfacing techniques taken care of and implemented in a cool way.
Well, here we go. I got that pulled up for you.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem, man.
We just want to go to the next slide.
Sure.
So my first question was, how could we make a safer and more communication-based or implemented gas mask as part of the wearable technology? Because right now, is basically you slap it on and you're kind of limited from how much speech you can do. There isn't necessarily that many functions beside the pretty important one of filtering kind of chemicals. So if we want to go to the next slide. I wanted to focus on the user group that's out there on the ground protesting to make the world a better place. So I thought maybe designing something for DeRay McKesson, who is a protester, kind of a nationally recognized guy who was arrested a few years ago. But ideally, I would be making these and giving them away to these organizations like Black Lives Matter and DSA and other places or in organizations like that for free, because the people doing the important work of protesting for social justice shouldn't have to pay for something that can kind of keep them safe in the face of police violence. So that was ideally the user group, and going into a few issues that you encounter when you're at a protest. Among police violence is your phone getting damaged pretty easily. There were people getting taken off the street last summer just in unmarked vans. So I thought if there was a way to implement kind of a GPS tracking and alarm system and stuff like that in a gas mask, that could keep a lot of people safe from the police state that exists at those kind of organizational marches and protests. If you want to hit the next slide. So kind of what I was saying is that right now the existing technology, not a lot of visibility or communication, no GPS tracking, and kind of when you try to talk to people wearing one of these, it's not always the easiest thing. So how could we improve upon those items and make it available for people? And these would be the features that I really want to tie into my final product. Camera, because the only way that police get held accountable these days is if it's on camera, and then it's not even a guarantee either. So then you also have GPS tracking, a speaker, phone connectivity, because we also had to do kind of like an app-based prototype for this project. So, and then also a panic mode if you are in a sticky situation. So this is the culmination of 11 pages of ideation squeezed onto a tiny little screen, but I went through a bunch of different forms of the mask itself, how the phone might look inside for the user, and kind of different speaker shapes and where those speakers would be placed, whether it's on the front or on the sides. But ultimately, after going to users and my peers and faculty at the school, the stuff at the bottom was a few of the design forms and features that we decided to move forward with. And these were a few different families of more refined iterations. And after going to users again and peers and getting feedback, ultimately the smoother, kind of more simple design with the speaker at the front, the racetrack speaker as someone called it, that was ultimately the direction that people thought would look the best, and that's what we moved forward with. So I brought it into Alias, and very quickly, because it was towards the end of the project and due date, so we were up all night a few times, as design goes. But we have kind of the lights at the top with the camera in between those, the speaker, and then kind of panic button and a power button on either temple, and then the kind of 40 millimeter filter that screws in, because 40 millimeter filters are what I found to be the most common and widely available for folks. And kind of the materials, polycarbonate for the face shield, because that's what police shields and other really protective clear plastic, or I guess objects, are made out of. So wanting to make sure that the people wearing this are as safe as they possibly can be. That's why I decided to implement that, and other materials like ABS for really safety kind of being the priority for this product. And then these are just kind of the integrated technology. I made sure there's enough room within the gas mask itself to implement the LEDs and speakers and other technology that would be required. And as far as human factors goes, wanted to make sure the materiality kind of made sure, went along with the fact that you can have something be protecting you, but not at the kind of expense of the comfort. So also wanting to get the dimensions right and kind of the scale and proportions of where things go, I brought in a head 3D model to design around in Alias. And as far as the storyboard goes, you would either change or check the filter, make sure it's actually keeping you safe. When you're out there, screw it in, pull the straps on, turn it on the left side, and then if you are kind of in a panicking situation, or if you're getting taken off the street by unmarked undercover police officer, then you can hit the panic button on your right side, and that would activate like a siren from the speaker, and the lights would go off, and hopefully someone around you could step in or follow the van or what have you, keep you safe. Then I believe we got a video of the app. Yeah. So this would be the home screen. You have your video, social, and contacts. If we click on the video portion, you have all the footage that you have kind of taken while your gas mask was on, and you can download it. Otherwise, you have the contact page, and that is who you can add from your phone, and whether or not you want to share your location with them when you hit the panic button, and you can add a contact right there, add a picture, name, and number, or you can import a contact from your phone, and that would be the contact page. Then we have socials. As far as footage goes on the ground, this is where you're probably going to get the most authentic material. So streaming, having those set to stream, or adding another app where you could kind of upload that footage. And then we have our GPS page, pass routes, other routes, and plan a route. This is where kind of the footage you had was taken and kind of covers where exactly you were in the city. And you have a plan a route, kind of start date and time, end date and time, and possible stops in between. And you can also share this route with folks from your contact list as well, just so they can kind of keep tabs on you and make sure you are where you said you were going to be at that time. And then this is just a simple share your location feature, pretty common stuff. Then we go into the video again. You can either watch it or download it. And then this is kind of the general page where you have your information about the gas mask, how long your filter is, and how much battery you currently have in there. This would be your profile, security. Ideally, there'd be like a light dark mode. These are just legal tips to keep in mind when you're out protesting, pulled from websites online. Then we have more resources, which are links to pages with more information on what to do if you are arrested or things like that that could come in handy. And then we have pro bono lawyers who do, or they do work pro bono for people who are arrested while at protests. So you have someone to go to in case the worst comes up. And that is the app prototype that I developed.
Wow. That's cool, man. Okay, so I'm just taking a look at this. I wanted to see, okay, one of the questions that I get asked, well, that I try and ask myself as I do design work is, what do I hope people are going to feel when they see this product? Does that make sense? Like,
oh, yeah.
So I'll often use that as a measuring stick for myself and say, okay, what are the words I'm trying to use to describe this product as I come up with a design, and then I check and see if whoever I ask, hey, do you think that this looks like this adjective, and this adjective, and see what they have to say. So humor me for a second. When you were starting this project, what were what were the things that you were thinking in your mind if you were to describe this, not necessarily what you see, but what you intended at the very beginning? We want this thing to look sleek, modern, whatever, pick words and then tell me what your thoughts were going into this and how that kind of unfolded.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the words is actually sleek. Because in terms of design language, that's typically what I lean towards. A little bit more minimalist, and first I want to be able to actually model it, so nothing too off or often left field or crazy looking. And I also wanted it to be something that people could wear, and it wasn't like the scariest looking thing or most industrial looking thing like gas masks kind of are right now. So a little more of a civilian-based approach to the design.
Okay, that's good. So that being said, I want some of our mentors to weigh in, hearing what his intentions were, the direction he was hoping to go. Why don't you unmute yourself and chime in here a little bit? Make sure you introduce yourself and tell us how effective do you think that was executed? What are some of the thoughts that you have as far as aesthetically and functionally? What the final results were, and where could we have, you see what your thoughts are. Bruce.
I can kind of totally disagree with what you've just done, because I think you are provoking a response by putting on a mask.
Yeah.
And I think part of public protest is exposing yourself. That you want to show the worst of the thing you're protesting. So if you start to put armor on, you're going to do a couple of things. One, I think you're going to get beaten up worse. And two, they don't know who you are. And I think this whole thing, the thing that most disturbs me in the world when I see a news event about police or about protesters is when they all have masks on. It's like, why? Excuse me? Part of this is, part of being part of a public protest is you are putting yourself in danger. You accept it. When my children and I go to a protest, the thing I tell them is that you must be relaxed, because they're not.
Yeah.
And if you're not laughing at them, the only way you disarm them is to laugh at them, And so I'm a little concerned about it. I love Ben, by the way. He was my student.
Oh, really?
He actually is a student. No, he's terrific. We love Ben. And he loves University of Wisconsin, by the way.
Yeah.
He is thrilled by it. So those are the things that I think are questionable. By the way, throw that all out the window. you did a great job of designing a gas.
Okay, that's where I was going to go to say. So putting that all aside, a little, preference and context or whatever, as far as execution on the aesthetics, if his goal was to get, a sleek look, what as he was describing it, was that done well? That's kind of what we're judging here. And as far as user touch points and what the user experience will be like utilizing this, I think there's some, my 2 cents, there's some cool features that are on it. I think that as far as the app goes, I've seen some of your graphic work in other places, Eric. It's not your strongest. It's not your strongest thing that you've put together graphically, but it's good. And I think that you at least check a lot of boxes as far as you have the structure right. I would then, if I were your instructor, say, okay, you've got this cool app that you've put together. I want to see some spit and polish on it. And really, there's a lot more to a brand than just a logo, just a color palette or something, especially if you're trying to embody a Black Lives Matter movement and the people who are going to be using that. You tell me, do you feel like that app visually resonates and aligns with what their messages and kind of, they would look at that and see like, oh, this is cool? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I know there's a ton that could be added to make sure that the language or experience that you feel while using it tie into more of like the reasoning behind why the app needs to exist. I think, I just know there wasn't a ton of time to throw all of this stuff together. So I wanted to make sure I hit on the functionality more than the aesthetics for this project.
And so I was going to say, you definitely have got that as far as, as I was looking at it, you didn't have too much clutter. I just looked and I was like, I feel like this could just be a way cooler looking thing.
Yeah.
Like in the end, the app could be way cool to just kind of go along with the visual, just the profile and the overall aesthetics of the mask itself, making them align. I just got a comment right here in the chat. You could collect data and feedback from your target market. Let them drive that as well. Got another comment on YouTube earlier, and we're just getting to it now, but it says, I think that these would be cool with other colors, surfaces, etc. Use nature as a reference, use retro reflective markings for safety. So some cool things to consider moving forward on your design itself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I've unmuted. Are there any follow-up comments to piggyback off of that? Bill, I saw that you unmuted. Did you want to chime in again?
Yeah, I'll chime in again. If anybody else wants to take the floor, I don't want to hog too much. But I want to get to the nuts and bolts of the presentation itself. I'll say this about the topic again, as I mentioned on John's presentation. This is clearly a kind of a passion project, something that hits close to your heart, and so it's easy to get inspired that way. So, and whether it's controversial or not, that's one thing. Whether it's scalable or not, that's another thing. We're talking about a commercialized product, and where's the market for it really? What kind of numbers could a company expect to make with a product like this? So having it scalable or adaptable to other groups, maybe. I don't know. I'll just leave it at that. As far as the nuts and bolts of the presentation go, I think it's generally pretty clean and tidy. I'd like to see a little bit more, a couple things. On the page that's up right now, the final model page, you've got a list of attributes, the face shield, the material choices, and some of the features and functions. I'd really like to see something really specifically pointed out here. We need call outs and leader lines and detail shots and things that really say, this is where this is at, and maybe this is how it works. You don't have to get into too much detail, but really showing where it lives, how it looks, how it functions would be helpful to the viewer here.
Yeah.
Secondly, in the storyboarding portion, I think there's a lot to be said about a storyboard that has almost like a level down of fidelity. If you're doing a sketch, versus having a nicely rendered view that's maybe shown in a couple different angles, it creates a hierarchy to the presentation, and it kind of breaks up it puts things on different levels and kind of grabs your attention, and also affords you the ability to put in some of those details, those in between things, really lay out your use case step by step. And then thirdly, I'm going to say the construction method, the strategy for how this thing is going to be built might be of interest to somebody who's, again, thinking about producing this. Maybe in that case, your audience isn't so much the consumer or the purchaser of this product, but the person who's going to be creating it or constructing it. Oftentimes in the design world, that is your audience, And so maybe sections or exploded views, and it doesn't have to be super detailed or DFM'd, but it should maybe just point to, hey, here's where we're going to layer up our materials. There's going to be foam padding underneath, and this area for electronics and so on and so forth would be kind of a helpful, I think, detail to include.
Oh, definitely. Appreciate that feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Bill. Appreciate you giving your 2 cents. Some good feedback. I guess my final question before we wrap things up. First of all, we appreciate every single one of you guys for participating, all of you mentors who have tuned in. One last reminder to everybody who's out there in YouTube land that you guys can support this channel by subscribing. The larger that we get, the bigger our giveaways can be, the more that we can grow and have a bigger influence. And truly the message of the variable is to continue to spread mentorship and help people, as we're all trying to just step up our game and get a little bit better every day. So my last question for all of you mentors that are here on the line before we tie things up and we conclude our very first student spotlight program, and this can be for John and Eric as you guys respond. I would like to have you guys weigh in and say, okay, overall impressions. So a number of you own studios. I mean, we've got Britt Ashcraft on here, Ian Peterman, Nathan Finley, all of you guys have, and even more that are on the list. You have your own studio. We want to be encouraging and so forth. So in a positive way, let's give these gentlemen some feedback and be honest as well. If these presentations were made in your office and you were given these presentations, or if they were there, what would be your overall impression, and what are some key takeaways? What are good things, and then some things that could be done to take it up a level and help them out as they go into the workforce so that they can find a little bit more success as they're trying to get some jobs.
I'll say a couple things. Sorry.
Ashcraft.
Yeah, I
There,
think
let me.
kind of what I'm going to reference applies to both. I think overall it was a great effort put forth, and it was well articulated. And with Eric, I liked the step away from when you'd said the wearable technology. You didn't want to do a phone or a watch or a headband or whatever, that you took kind of a little bit more of an innovative route. I think so far as the visual impact, and while that sounds very cliche and trite, I guess, I feel it's very important, that first read from the visuals and how it comes across. And for both, I don't feel like they had a strong enough impact aside from the form and everything, how the value and the colors and the materials could really pop. Like with John's, I feel like if it is wood, once again, this is just trying to be constructive criticism because I think it's a great start. I think that to take it to the next level, like with the wood, you can really punch that up through just how that wood comes across. Because right now, when you look at it, it looks brown and maybe a little bit muted, and potentially to some people it could look dated or traditional from either the type of wood you use or the stain you use. And so, to Bill's point, just showing different options so that you can either make it a little bit more accessible to different environments. And like with Eric's presentation, I felt like the overall form development was solid, but you lose a lot of the impact from the overall images because the tones are very similar. So you have like a medium gray in the background, and then you have, your black mask. And while you can work with those tones and make it pop, the values really kind of didn't make it pop enough. So I'd suggest either working on some of the highlights and darks and values from that standpoint, or, you know, going to like a white background with your black mask. And then to that point again, I think either Bruce or Bill had pointed it out, is something as simple as with that mask, changing the color. You know, black is expected with masks. Does white make it more approachable? And then how, I assume that filter is standard filter, but you know, it looks aggressive. So to make it more approachable, is it, while you can't change the design of that filter, can you change the design of the mask to integrate it so it doesn't look as intimidating?
Yeah.
So I think for both overall, I think the stories are well told. For me, it's just that initial first read that if you're not there to discuss these things, what is that visual pop, and are you communicating that visually? And you can do that through, you know, when a design's simple, it's very important to pop those materials up, because the materials are going to be doing the selling.
That's great. Oh, apparently my computer wants you guys to really wants you to subscribe. Here, let me reset that. my piggybacking off of that. Thank you, Bray. I appreciate those comments. My suggestion for both of you gentlemen, and generally a good rule of thumb as you're trying to, because we try to put on a graphic design hat all the time as product designers, and it's a skill that everybody is continually working on and striving to improve. So always, if you're one helpful thing that I found is to go and look up some studios and some related products. Maybe it's not even related, but a specific product presentation that kind of embodies what you're going for, that motif, and go, oh, wow, that was done really well, and take a look and take note, kind of like what you were suggesting, Brett. If there's a pop of color, you know, change that background to this and do a little treatment on your materials, maybe this and that can make just the biggest difference in making your work presentation. I mean, maybe it sounds cliche, but your presentation can make or break the product. The overall form and the development may be fantastic, but if you can't get the colors just right, we had a suggestion right here come in the chat. Do a color study. Put them on top of each other. You know, is white a good one? Is this a good one? Do some user studies and have them take a look and tell you which one they think works best. Those are all some good suggestions. We had another Ian. We'll let you chime in real quick. I saw that you unmuted. I'll let you make some comments real quick, and then we'll wrap things up for the student spotlight. Oops, we're not hearing you, bud.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, now we can.
Okay. So turns out my comments for you guys are the same. So like Russ was just mentioning, we like to wear a graphic designer hat. The other hat that you both should be thinking about wearing is the engineer hat. And we talked a little bit about it, but really think about the mechanics of how are you going to actually make it. So like John, for yours, what is the drawer mechanism? How is that going to slide out and hold the weight? What happens if somebody sits down on it? If you have it for kids are absolutely going to pull that thing out and probably jump on it. I have 5 of them, so they'll definitely do that. So think about like mechanics and durability of what are they going to do? What's going to happen to that product by the user, and how are you going to protect it against the other people that are going to interact with it? And then the other part, both of you have connections, you both have people that you can talk to. So something that I always put into a project, and it's taken years to get there, but I do it every time now, is actually do a little bit of user study. So something that I'd love to see, especially as you're graduating or getting into professional world and you're going to need this, is who are you talking to? Who have you talked to? Have you done a questionnaire? Go talk to some pregnant ladies. Go talk to some protesters. Go actually talk to who's going to use it and show them your sketches. Don't wait till the end. Like, get that feedback and put that in part of your presentation, because it'll put a lot of weight behind, I designed this and feedback shows that these 3 features are the features that they care about. This is what—
And it's like storytelling too. as you enumerate all of those different things. Sharing your story is super compelling as you're trying to make an impression with studios and get jobs. Was there anything last thing in, because I got to point in the right direction. If that's it, okay, I've got just one more request to chat real quick. It was Nathan. Nate, did you want to have your last thoughts real quick before we wrap things up?
I'll
Oops. I'm trying to full screen you, Nate. Sorry, and I accidentally muted you.
You're fine.
There we go.
Well,
go ahead, bud.
So probably one of the things, like you mentioned the studio piece, like we own our studios. One of the critical things playing off this presentation thing is setting context for the work and the scale of the work too. And I think that probably help you guys manage our responses too. Like, we have lots of experience and understand how far you're taking these projects. But for me, what's always been really helpful in presentations is providing some kind of, hey, this is the scope, and this is how that timeline plays out. I understand that you only have a couple of months to do this project, going through and like doing a full blown out engineering dive and then doing a story study and all that kind of stuff. It's heavy. And so setting some context at the beginning and then also breaking your presentation up into, phases or that kind of progression, I think will be helpful in that as well. And I love a lot of the other comments. Totally agree with Britt about like the pop. One thing I've also learned in life is, and with design is, you get that first shot. When you show it, if it's not impactful, the guy who's next to you that has an impactful look will probably get a lot more attention. So kind of keep that in mind.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here on our Student Spotlight. I think it was overall a great success. Want to let you know that if you are a student who's tuning in or a working professional, we'd love to have you participate in our next one. You can check out the variable.design/spotlight. There are going to be respective forms on there. One for mentors if you'd like to be added to our invite list. There you go. You can just go in, fill it out, and be added to it. It just invites you. If you RSVP, no. If you can't make it, yes, great. Students can nominate themselves if they'd like to be featured on the show, and we encourage faculty members to take a moment and nominate exemplary students to be on the show and participate. Once again, we're going to tell you, subscribing supports the channel, and we greatly appreciate everything that you guys have done. Until next time, keep designing, and best of luck to everybody.